In this section, we're going to apply the outline gradient on the UI. So the glass UI has started to become really popular over the years, and this is something we apply to a lot of the windows and reflections, and it has a lot to do with the lighting. So this is fairly new in visionOS, where you're using the outline to show the lighting where it's coming from, and it's very dynamic. Now, the outline is not necessarily common in iOS, but that doesn't mean that the outline is not used at all in iOS. In fact, for the dividers and sometimes for the ghost buttons, you're going to see that outline. For the Mac and websites, it's a lot more common to have an outline and a drop shadow, as you can see here on the dock as well as the windows. So with visionOS, this is taking it to the next level, with the outline and the gradient really following the light. So learning these techniques really allows you to create a more consistent design that is custom, because this is what this course is all about, while following a general guide that is set by Apple. If you haven't downloaded the visionOS and macOS design templates, go to the design resources, and here you're going to find the Figma file, and you'll be able to explore the components and the templates, the colors, material for iOS 17, visionOS, and macOS. Alright, back in Xcode, we're going to learn how to apply an outline to the container. So we're going to go to the VStack, double click on this to find the end of it, and right before the corner radius, we're going to use an overlay modifier. Now, compared to the background, this is going to set a layer on top of everything. So instead of using a Z-stack, which tends to add a little bit of indentation everywhere, the overlay can make your code a lot more concise using a modifier. So here, using the overlay, I'm going to set a new shape. In this case, we're going to use a rounded rectangle with the option of a corner radius of 20. Now for the style, we don't need this right now. So what you're noticing here is that my rounded rectangle is sitting on top of everything, and it's using the same size as the base container, which is very useful because, as we know, shapes tend to use the maximum size. Now, using this shape, I can use a modifier specific to shapes. It's called stroke, and for the stroke, I can color it using blue. So you can see now I have the outline that is applied to the shape itself, and that is inside the overlay, so it's above everything. Keep in mind that we have multiple options for the stroke. So if you option click on the modifier, you're going to find the documentation about it, and you're going to see the different options, such as the line width, as well as the style. Alternatively, I can also do auto completion, stroke, and you can see we have multiple options, including the content style or the content line width. Now let's go with the content and the style. Again, for the content, we're going to use the color blue, and the stroke style, I'm going to use the default value that is expected for style. So double click on it, and here you're initializing it using new options. So the stroke style can have all of these options, such as line width, but also some more familiar, such as the line cap, the dash, and so on. Keep in mind that these options are the same that are available in Figma in advanced stroke. So for example, we have the stroke width, the stroke style, so you can also set the join, such as making it rounded or not. And also, if you want to set the dash, then you have the gap space and the dash space, and the rounded for the dash cap as well. We're not going to apply that to the official design, but I want to show you how to play with those options. So we can start with line width and try to set it to 2, And then in the order that we have in the auto-completion, it's very important. We're going to set the line cap right after. I'm going to set it to round, then line join to round as well. And then we'll try the dash, and you'll see that some of these options, if you know what to expect in terms of values, you know exactly what to enter. So in this case, this is an array using a CG float, which is essentially a number. And since it's an array, we can have multiple values, and this can be similar to what you enter in Figma. So I'm going to set to 10 and then 20, and then one last one, we can use dash phase to 1. Now, this is where it gets fun, because we can play with these values and see how they change, and to try to understand how it can be similar to the same options in Figma, because they don't have exactly the same name. So for example, the dash can be the dash and gap right here, and the dash phase is where it starts. So this option is not necessarily available in Figma. And you'll notice this very often, is that the design tool will definitely be a lot more limited to the coding tools, depending on the tools, of course, but most tools, especially when they start and they haven't matured, will definitely try to catch up with coding. The same applies to CSS and Android platforms. Now, one detail that you're noticing is that even though I'm setting the line width to 2, I'm only seeing a single point, and it should be a lot thicker. And that's because we have the corner radius that is essentially clipping the content. So without the corner radius, you're going to see that we can see a thicker outline. As you can see here, we don't have the corner radius because that's what the modifier is allowing us to do, but also it's clipping a portion of the outline. So what this means is that the outline is drawn from the middle instead of inner. And so instead of using stroke, we can use stroke border, which allows us to draw inner. All right, cool. Now let's try to apply a gradient instead of the blue color. And we're going to go outside of the body because we're going to declare a gradient. And you can see we have the body, and then we have the curly braces. Double click on it to see the end of it. And then right after, we're going to declare var linear gradient of type linear gradient, because that's the object. And then we're going to use that linear gradient and parentheses, set the option for colors. And now we have the array of colors as well as the start point and end point. Now, the naming convention for declaring something is camel case, and typically you want to start with lowercase. That's because you need to differentiate between something that is customly declared versus something that is official as an object from the API. So now for the color, I'm going to use 3 colors, starting with clear, which is transparent, then primary, which allows me to make it adaptive against light and dark mode. And on that primary color, I'm going to apply an opacity of 0.3, and then comma, clear again for the third color. And now we have a gradient. We just need to apply also the start point, which is top leading, and then end point bottom trailing. So now that this gradient is created, I can use it in multiple places. Think of it as a color style in Figma, where once you set it once, you can apply it to multiple text. And so this linear gradient, I'm going to use it multiple times. I'm going to start with replacing the blue color that I have here. And so dot blue, instead of that, I'm going to use linear gradient. Just make sure that it starts with a lowercase l linear gradient. Now I know that this is what I declared earlier. Another way to tell is the color of the text is green in this case. Otherwise, it would be more light purple. So now that I have my gradient, you can see it's applied to the outline, and I'm not going to use the dash style that I set earlier. So I'm going to delete that and just focus on stroke border and then linear gradient. I have exactly what I want from my design. And now we can apply the same outline to the container of these icons as well as this other icon. So I'm going to use the overlay modifier, just copy everything, including the spacing before. And so I'm going to go to this H stack right here, and then the second H stack. So you can see that this is for the 3 icons. And I'm going to apply that before the offset. So just make sure to remove the extra space. And now we have the same style, and we're going to apply also to the image. And voila. Now, before we go, I want to show you how to apply a specific rounded corner. So only on the top right and bottom left. Now, to do that, we're going to go to the first H stack. And this is where, for the overlay, so the outline, instead of using rounded rectangle, we're going to replace this with another one, which is called uneven rounded rectangle. And so parentheses, we have the option for the corner radius and the style, which we don't need. So I can delete this for now. And here I can double click on it, initialize it, and I can use one of these settings such as top leading, bottom trailing, and top trailing. Now in this case, I'm going to apply the top leading to 0, bottom leading to 20, bottom trailing to 0, and top trailing to 20. So let's try to do the reverse for the right icon. And here I'm going to copy uneven rounded rectangle, and instead of the rounded rectangle, I'm going to paste it, and we have the same shape as the first one, so I can change the numbers. So top leading 20, bottom leading 0, bottom trailing 20, and top trailing 0. So now we have the shape mirrored horizontally. So there we go. We have learned about the outline, how to customize the advanced strokes such as the dash, and how to create custom rounded corners for your shape. Now in the next section, we're going to learn how to animate SF Symbols 5 because it's really easy and convenient in iOS 17. So I'll see you in the next section.